Hey Dee, we're up to the letter J as we garden our way through the alphabet.
Yes, and it was easy to name some flowers, but as for veggies,
Well, don't give anything away. That's going to be coming up in the episode.
I won't. Instead, I'll get us started. Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I, in spite of downsizing, still have a large garden out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
I wish mine was. We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. How is your garden? How's it going? What you been
It,
doing?
you know what? So clickety clickety click. I have planted out all the tomato and pepper plants the other evening.
Good for you.
I put little forks around the pepper plants so the little rabbits or critters wouldn't bite them off. You know how they bite them off.
Yes, they do. They do
So
that with zinnias too. Just gonna say.
anyway, I spoke to a garden club group on Monday night about new plants up at the greenhouse. I've mowed twice, kept stuff watered, haven't planted as much as I wanted. But this morning I was out there, I was picking strawberries, I was cutting lettuce, pulling radishes, onions.
I saw
Uh,
that little haul.
a
That was
little
a good one.
haul. And then I've been doing some weeding this morning and some deadheading, and I've already cut back my asters, Dee, and it's early for me.
Yeah, and my asters, well, the horrible aster is grown really tall, but I'm just pulling it out as fast as I can. Um, so did you get a box from Burpee or Ball?
Yes,
Did you
I
get
got
some ornamentals or did you get veggies or
no, I've
both?
gotten some ornamentals. We talked about those last week. I got
Well,
petunias.
I got them this week.
Yay.
Yeah, petunias. And what is the deal with oh
Dianthus.
no. Yeah, this year. What is the deal? I've
You
gotten
know
so
what?
many dianthus. They must be on a dianthus kick.
They must be. I've got one out in my garden right now that is beautiful.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking that it's a trial plant that I got in the last couple years. And I really need to go back through the little flyers that they give you, the little sheets,
Yes.
because it's really pretty.
Yeah. I got three or four that I put into a pot and they're gorgeous early on in the season. And then I got three more or two more, I don't know, in this last deal. And then I got a veggie thing from Ball or Burpee. And yeah, that one was sad. The only thing that survived out of that shipment was a Sherfina sunflower, which I'm going to plant tomorrow. All the
Yeah.
tomatoes just got beat up. It wasn't the people who packed it, and it wasn't the grower. It was the delivery service, and I think it was
Well,
FedEx.
I have not gotten vegetables from Burpee yet. I generally do, so maybe they'll come next week. But I
Hopefully
did
yours
get
will
a,
be good, and then we
I
can
got,
talk about them.
I know, I got a box of really pretty beacon impatiens. I got 9 of them from Ball Hort. They're gorgeous. And
Yeah,
the wheelbarrow that I have in the back that's got the pansies in it now,
yeah,
they're all going to go in there and it's going to be a glorious display under that tree.
it
So,
is. It is.
yes.
I'm getting
One
ready to
other
pull
thing.
all of my pansies out of my containers and replace them with some of these plants that I got
Yeah,
yesterday.
I'm about ready to pull some of mine because I've been buying so much stuff, and it's like it would be easier to keep this stuff watered if it was actually planted in the containers where it's going to go. But that's going to
Yeah.
be in my commissions for the week. And now I can't remember what else I was going to tell you. So why don't we talk about your garden?
Okay. And then you'll think of it. And then you can say at the end. So I worked in the garden nearly every day and I bought a couple of UV shirts from Amazon because I'm now sensitive to the sun. That, like a lot of my other stuff, has gone away since
Uh-huh.
I've been on Solar. But this new sun sensitivity is a real drag because it causes me to flare and I flush up the side of my face. So I also bought 70 vegan 70 sunbum cream to put on my face and ear and all that,
Uh-huh.
and it has
Sure.
really helped all those things. And then I did a big presentation on ticks, on the Lone Star ticks with Sharon Forsyth. And Sharon did all the heavy lifting on this deal because she had been researching it, but then suddenly she goes, I don't have anything about the landscape. I'll contact Dee. So that's how I got involved. And I actually learned a couple of things. And so we're going to link to that in our show notes and also into in the newsletter because it is kind of long because people had a lot of questions at the end and we
Sure.
did answer some of them. So it's a webinar. So just get something to drink, sit down and take notes because Sharon is thorough and it's probably the best information I've seen on Lone Star ticks in a long time.
Cool. Yeah, we'll spread the word about that one.
Okay, and then I've been harvesting beautiful lettuce this year. I have some really pretty lettuces and I saw your onions and I was like, what? Because my baby onions still look like little babies, and you were like, "Dee, those were onion sets." And I was like, "So next year I'm gonna plant some sets for green onions, and then plant the seeds for my bigger crop of onions."
Yeah,
And oh,
my seedlings that I planted out there, I told you
they're
I thought
tiny.
they they were like planting strands of hair. They were so small. And I looked at
Yeah.
those the other day and I thought, I don't know if that's worth the space in the garden. They just might get all hoed under and go on to something else.
Oh, well, we'll see. Well, we'll see what happens. Peas this year, the sugar pod peas. I know I talked about them last week, but they deserve two shout outs because they have been so good.
My peas look
And
good.
are they blooming yet?
One variety is blooming like crazy, but it's only like a foot tall.
Huh.
Um, but last year I had the powdery mildew problem way to the other side of the garden, and way over there is where the tomatoes are now. So this is as far as I could get the peas away from that spot. So
Yeah.
far, fingers crossed, they're actually I'm kind of thinking I'm going to get a pretty decent harvest.
Oh, and that reminded me of something else. I pulled up a few of my tomatoes that I grew because I can't really eat tomatoes
Right,
right now.
right.
They're a nightshade and they're high histamine. And so I'm not saying I won't eat a tomato. Oh, there's a hummingbird. Just flew by my window. That's a happy
Nice.
thing.
That is a happy
Anyway,
thing.
I just don't need as many as I used to do. So there you go. And by the way, they have come out of their funk since I shared about it on Instagram. It just was too cold and too wet for too long, but they're better now. So there you go. That's other than that, I'm just pulling weeds, mulching, deadheading roses, deadheading irises,
Yeah, I
deadheading peonies.
yeah, I did go out to my sister's, the one that had the lawn problems with my
Uh-huh.
niece. I went out there and my niece is actually she's very tired of watering. They went ahead and had somebody aerate and then overseed and then they've seeded some and she's been watering like crazy.
Is it
And
doing
then
better?
it's coming up, but I mean like the whole back part of their lawn and the whole one side and it's like they have a pretty big yard.
Oh, that'd be so
And
sad.
my sister had her two pear trees cut down in front. They were huge.
Yay!
Okay, so they're gone and
Two more Bradford pears bite the dust.
we just always when I go over there, we walk around and see what's growing and everything. And she's doing pretty. Everything else is doing pretty well, but she mulches quite a bit. And I told her I says, and I tell you, I'm not one to go buy a bunch of mulch. I'm just like I just kind of plant and don't worry about the ground so
I
much.
mulch, but I use my arborist chips, so
I
that that's a big pile, and I just go get what I want out of it.
Well, what I should say is some of the mulch that she bought last year had done what they call sheeting, where it all sticks together and it's like the water
Water
runs off
just
of
goes,
it.
whoosh. Yeah.
And so I said, well, you need to you need to rough that up a little bit and break it up and everything. And she thought maybe she would look for a different source for her.
I think that's wise because if there's too much bark in your mulch and you see this bark in packaged bags all the time, it either floats or it does that sheeting thing, partly because the resins in the bark are what help trees to be able to sheet the rain.
Right.
And
And
I don't think they talked about that until recently.
no, and then I told her, I said, the very best mulch they say is arborist chips. And I
It
said,
is.
that would have been helpful for me to have told her the week prior because they had just cut down those trees, chipped them
And they
up.
could
And
have used it.
I said, you could have had them dump it all in the driveway and that could have been your mulch. And
Yeah. Free.
So arborist chips, and I'm like, I'm sad to say that you just had two gigantic trees that would have been good
Yeah,
mulch, I think. Anyway.
they would have. And it's good if you let it sit too, because then it starts to break down. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that on your driveway, obviously, but if you have a
Right.
place in your back, if you have a big lot. Anyway, we have a bunch of questions this week. Shall
Well,
we?
wait a minute. We haven't
Oh, we
done
got to play
favorites.
favorites. Okay, play favorites. Sorry. You go first.
So it could be all the stuff I harvested this morning, but instead it's going to be the very stunning ornamental
They
Allium
are pretty.
subrudii that looks like a big firecracker or sparkler. Those are all blooming out there, competing with the Bartzella yellow peony. So
Wow.
if
But that
people
is
don't walk
pretty.
by my yard and say, wow, what is Carol growing? There's something wrong with them.
So I actually got a question. I'll just say this about peonies. So it's
Uh-huh.
about itos or intersectional peonies.
Yes.
And Michelle who helps me occasionally in the garden, she asked this question. She goes, "If I cut the seeds off of a peony like Bartzella, well, can I just grow a peony of my own?" And I said, not Bartzella,
No, not Barzella.
because it's an intersectional peony. So no, you cannot. And honestly, even if you did it off of just regular old herbaceous peonies, which are what I grow mostly, you aren't going to get the same thing. So
No,
just buy
no.
a peony. They aren't that expensive.
Well, actually,
Um,
Barzella she can be upwards of $100 depending on the
Not
size of her.
anymore now. I mean, you
Uh,
can find her at Costco most of the time.
well, I haven't seen her at Costco since I bought two that one year.
Well, I saw her the other day and she was $50. So
At
it wasn't at
Costco?
cost. No, it wasn't at Costco. It actually was at a local nursery and she was $50 and she was in a great big 5 gallon container. So I thought
That's a
that was
pretty good
fair.
price. That's a
That's
good
a good
price.
price. I don't want her. I tried to grow her once. She didn't like it here. So
I have three of her. Two in
I
front, they
know.
love it. They're already blooming. And
But you live in Indiana.
the one in back is not blooming yet. It's going to be glorious. I mean, they're just the best thing ever, Dee.
No, they're
Really,
not.
honestly, they're just wonderful.
I don't think they are because I tend to like the pinks. So there you go. The colors of the intersectionals are different, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Sometimes that's good. But for me, I want those big pink fluffy flowers. So moving on, my favorite this week is one of my pots on the back deck. I haven't decided which one because they all look good. The end.
All right. Well, we will put pictures in the newsletter of all these things. So we did get three questions. Let's rip through these three questions so we can get back to the letter J. First up, we had someone from Memphis said, "Are there any perennial salvia that bloom white?" And you said,
They also said thanks for your podcast.
"Oh, thanks,
Um,
heart your podcast."
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I thought of two right off the top of my head. Salvia farinaceae Augusta Dulberg, which is one of the ones that was found down in Texas. And it was, I think the other one's Henry Dulberg, but I'm bad with names. But anyway, Augusta was the other guy's wife, and there was a blue Salvia farinaceae that nobody had ever seen before, and a white one. And so they were on either side of the headstone. And so Augusta is the white one, and the blue one is Henry. So there's
Nice.
that. And then there's Salvia nemorosa white perfusion, which is in the same group as pink perfusion, which is actually, yeah, pink perfusion, because it's rose marvel and blue marvel. And then there's white perfusion and pink perfusion. So those are both great. They're totally different because the Farinaceae types have the blue green leaves that are kind of soft, which I
Right?
personally love. The Nemorosas have a rougher leaf and they're a shorter plant. So both are good though. Just depends on where you want them.
Very nice. So the next one, read that question.
Ladies, even my non-gardening husband enjoys your podcast. Woohoo! Carol, did your crossvine Bignonia capreolata ever do anything? I ordered one for you from Brushwood Gardens many moons ago. Mine puts on a spectacular show this time of year. Indianapolis, Indiana. Did she
I,
buy it
I don't
for
think she
you?
ordered one
I
for,
didn't buy
no,
it for
I
her.
think she
I
missed,
think it's the type, I think she just ordered one and you got one. Okay,
yes.
so the question is, did your crossvine do well?
You know what? It is a vigorous vine and it would have done well, but I kept it cut back. And finally, this spring, I think I've got it fully dug out because it was in a hidden view where I couldn't see it. And I thought it was going to like go through the fence and just kind of make a mess in my neighbor's yard. And so I have transplanted it. I should have transplanted it, but I just cut it out and just said, okay, I'm not having that.
So I also grow Bignonia capreolata, and some years mine does really well, but if we have a lot of cold, it dies back to the ground and it blooms on old wood, so that doesn't work so well.
But this one always, almost always died back to the ground. So,
So
but
did
we,
yours come back and bloom on new wood then?
well, since I always tried to cut it back, I'm not sure. But she acts like hers has been a spectacular show.
Yeah,
So it
I don't
must
know.
be, I don't know.
I have thought about mine's not very vigorous where it is, and it's on an arbor, and I've actually thought about pulling it out and putting that true gratitude rose on that arbor instead. I might. It just depends on my mood. All right, so the last question is, let me find it. Oh, here
Are
we go.
there Are there good uses for the potting soil with moisture retention ingredients outside potted plants, perhaps? Memphis, Tennessee. And the answer is no. Boo! We do not like the moisture retention granules in any of our potting soils. That's just nasty. It's plastic, and you don't want to
It's
incorporate that into
plastic.
your
Yeah.
soil. That is just, we just all need to say, we're not buying that. We are not buying that. I don't even think it's good for indoor plants. No.
Okay. Carol feels very strongly about this. I don't like it either, but I just thought of something else when I was running through our notes this morning.
Uh
If you
huh.
want more moist potting soil naturally, buy a coir mix instead of a peat moss mix. A lot of times those are listed on the back of the packaging, or they'll say something like for example, one from Fox Farm is called Coco Loco, and it's made from coconut hulls. And honestly, it does retain moisture much better than peat moss. I've used both, so there you go.
Okay. That was our three questions.
Wow, that was a lot. You
Yeah,
want to do the quote?
I do. A garden just isn't a garden without a garden gate. A garden should be a secluded place, made so by tall outlining shrubbery or a fence. But most of all, a garden must have a gate to say hello and goodbye to the visitors. Mrs. L. L. Huffman.
I agree with her. I
I do
think garden
too.
gates are beautiful. And I also
Yes.
have gates going up to my deck because we used to have a dog
Uh
and we
huh.
didn't want him up on the deck because he was kind of bad about not like if you had food out there, he drove you nuts and things like that. So I like gates. I think gates are nice. So
Yes.
flowers, J is for, you listed all of these.
So the first one we came up with is Jack in the Pulpit, which is great for a woodland garden. This is an Eracema. Triphyllum is the native, and I have a story about it because at Sewell's Garden, which is not too far from here,
Been
he is
there.
very much into the Erasemas, and he's got a lot of the Chinese and Japanese varieties, and some of these can get really big.
Mhm.
And I told him that I once dug some out of a woods where my brother was damming it up to make a lake, and I dug some up, and I still have them in my garden. But he said that in the wild, they can often have a rust. And if you bring them
Oh,
in from the wild and you've also got these other varieties, it could pass a rust from one to the other. So it's just a little caution if you're going to dig them up. But I think they're very nice. They're very
mhm.
interesting. I'm not interested enough to go buy all the Chinese and Japanese varieties, but I am happy to have a native
Mhm.
Jack in the Pulpit in my garden.
I do not grow it, but I admire it. So
It's
go ahead. What were you gonna
Well, it's
say?
got that spathe and spadix, and they call it Jack in the Pulpit because it looks like a little man sitting in a pulpit.
Yeah, it's cute. So Japanese toad lilies, which I do grow, which is Triceratops,
Tricertus.
Tricertus. Um, Great plants. There's a lot of different varieties out there, like so many, and they're late summer blooming. They love the shade. They love partial shade. I mean, they do really well here. Easy to grow, not aggressive, really good
Yeah.
plants. My only caveat, deer like to eat them. So don't put them where deer are, because you don't want to invite deer in your garden, because what do deer have, Carol?
Deers have ticks.
Yeah, deer have ticks, and deer have a lot of Lone Star ticks. So as much as you can get deer out of your garden is good. So put these where the deer won't see them.
The other thing I would say is you can get some with variegated leaves, which adds a little bit of lightness to a
Interest.
shady area.
Mhm.
And I used to think of these as being the last things to bloom in the fall, but the next flower we talk about is actually one of the last to open up. I will see some toad lilies as early as August, and the little
I see
spotted
them.
flowers.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I have
Pretty.
a blog post about why they have spotted flowers that the garden fairies wrote. I'll have to find that.
Uh-huh. I remember that blog post.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next one is Japanese anemone. They also bloom in late summer or early fall. We've seen them. I've seen them on tour. I do not have them in my garden. Can they be aggressive in some
They
places?
can. I have some. Uh, I'm trying to think what there's a white one that everybody grows. I want to say Josephine
It's really
Robert,
famous. Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
I am not finding it aggressive in my garden. I was out there weeding today and I did see where it has come up and I see I have two or three plants and one of them might be a new plant, but I don't find them aggressive. I know at the Indianapolis Zoo, they have some fairly naturally planted areas that kind of run a little bit
Uh-huh.
wild, and you see them there in the fall. And I think they self sow more there than in my garden. But I've never found them to be like, oh my gosh, what did I do to myself?
I think it's where it depends on where you live. I
Right.
do.
But for
Um,
late fall,
they're
they're
really
really
pretty.
good. They'll
Mhm.
bloom all the way up until like the end.
Cold. Yeah. Okay, and the next one, Japanese Caria, which is called Caria japonica, and it's also called Japanese rose, and it's bright yellow flowering. There is a double form, a single form, and a variegated form.
And
And
so I'm gonna say, meh. I have one and I don't give
I
it
love
proper
mine.
attention. It's probably not getting enough sun or something. And I'm pointing back there because I know where it's at. And
Mhm.
it's, if I moved it and gave it a little bit of pride of place, it might perform better. But
Probably.
in front, also one that if I planted it and gave it pride of place because it's almost swallowed up by this spruce, I have an alba, a white flowering carrier.
That's right. There is a white flowering Caria too. So I have the double form Flor Plano, which is the double flowering, and it's in the front yard and it grows in partial sun. And I love it dearly. I mean, I really love it. And I think it's funny about our different climates because in the winter it has bright green stems and it does that till, I mean, all winter long, unless it's super cold. And then in the back, I have a single flowering one that my girlfriend Wanda gave to me years ago, and it's just beautiful in the spring and it kind of weaves through and it's just beautiful. So I love that plant. I hear it
Like I
has
said,
I hear it has a problem though in some places, like in Chicago, there's some kind of a problem with it, some sort of a disease problem. But I
yeah,
don't have that
I
here.
don't know because I've never been a big, I could take it or leave it.
Mine's a big, huge section now.
Never gets
I'm
that
gonna
big.
put a picture in our newsletter so other people will see how
Yeah,
pretty it is.
so because if we put a picture of mine, people will say, "No, I'm not doing that."
So the last one you listed was Joe Pyeweed, and you said no native garden should be without it. I would say no pollinator garden should be without it because it is
Right.
a beautiful plant. And there's different varieties. There's a bunch of different varieties. I have two. I have Little Joe and Baby Joe. And I have
I
one,
have
I used to have one other one, but I don't remember the name of it right now.
yeah, I have little Joe and he or she, whatever, it is getting shaded out where it's at because I planted this sort of prairie type garden, but the tree on the one end just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's like,
As they do.
as they do. And so it's pretty shady over there. And I thought, but the black-eyed Susans are hanging in. The Shorts goldenrod is going crazy. I've got some spigelia over there. I was just over there weeding. That's how I know. And I have a sculpture thing there made out of metal that I kind of fixed up a little bit. And
Uh-huh.
but little Joe has not performed very well the last few years. He or she, they like it wet. They like a
They
wetter
do.
soil.
Mine isn't a little too dry a soil, but it does okay, and it's over. I have two of them. I have the shorter ones are over in the kitchen border, and then the other ones are over in the long border, and they're kind of in shade more, but they're huge, and they're over there with cut plant, and so they're in a section that I just don't even mess with much.
Yeah, I've cut plant over there too. The other thing about Joe Pye weed is this is one of the last to emerge out of the ground in the spring too.
Yes,
And so it's much smaller than things around it at this point. And so, and actually I
it
was
gets
looking and saying,
eaten.
I think this is Joe Pye weed. I think this one's Joe Pye weed. Because after a
So
while,
mine did that the other day too, and it was coming up in the ornamental oregano, and I had to pull it all away from it because that stuff's super aggressive, and
right.
and it was eating Joe Pye weed. So I would say this about Joe Pye weed: it is not a real powerful plant. It does fine, but it gets eaten by other things,
I'm
crowded
not sure
out.
it's getting eaten, but it's just, I think mine's getting shaded out. So
Yeah, crowded out, shaded out. All right, you want me to do the quote?
I I think that's it for Jay Flowers, unless you thought of something else. Like, did we talk about Johnny Jump Ups? No, it's been weeks since I've talked about any violas or pansies or anything. And I can't believe I didn't put Johnny Jump Ups on the list.
Okay, moving on. Now you made me laugh. The whole world is a series of miracles, but we're so used to them, we call them ordinary things. Hans Christian Andersen.
I think that's true about Johnny Jump Ups. They're so ordinary that we just don't think how pretty they are.
And they do spread like
Not as
violas.
much as, anyway.
Not as much as violas. I have violas everywhere. All right,
I don't.
vegetables. You
They don't
don't?
spread as much in my garden. Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, they're everywhere. I have to like weed them out because they're so
No, that's
naughty.
sinful.
No, carpets of violas. I mean, carpets
That's,
of violets.
oh,
Violets,
violets.
not violas,
Violets.
violets.
Yeah, I got violets everywhere. And it's
We're
yeah.
not supposed to be talking about those. Let's talk about J vegetables.
Okay.
You go. You do
So
it.
we said that J was for Japanese style vegetables, which I got a list of them from Farmer Lee Jones's book, The Chef's
The
Garden.
chef's garden.
And so I thought, well, we really, really should make this Farmer Lee Jones
Yeah.
for the J.
Jones's guide to the Jones's guide to Japanese vegetables. So
I brought my
there
book so you could
are
see.
I know I love him. I did not bring my book in here. It's a giant tome.
It is a giant book.
And
Oh.
I do love this book because it is so good and we've talked about it many times. So there are Japanese turnips, which are great and they're kind of elongated, and there's several varieties, and most of them are white, but I think there is a purple one. Then there's Japanese radishes, which the
Mm-hmm.
daikon radish comes to mind, which I don't
Right.
eat a lot of, but I don't think it's hard to grow. Um, and then there's Japanese greens. There's so many Japanese greens or Asian greens.
You know what? I do grow the next thing, the green or spring onions. And but I don't grow a lot of the Japanese greens. What are you
I don't
laughing
think
about?
because green onions are not just Japanese, but
I know,
I
but we
mean,
put them on
they're
the
used
list.
in cooking a lot. Yeah, they're used
Well,
in
one of the
Asian.
great varieties is Tokyo Long.
Okay, of onions. Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I all right. And then there's eggplant, and I do love the Asian eggplants. They are
Hmm.
some of the best, absolute best. And easier to grow than the big eggplants, more tender, less bitter. I'm not growing
Yes.
any this year though, because what is eggplant?
High
High
histamine.
histamine. Yeah. And then you brought up bamboo shoots, and did you write where do they come from or did
No,
I? And then because I was
wrote
saying
you
right,
wrote
because I was
bamboo
saying we
shoots.
should talk about where bamboo shoots come from. And you said, from bamboo plants. And I was like, yes, but more specifically, bamboo shoots come fresh in water, appearing in the late spring. They are the young growth of the bamboo plant and are conical in shape and yellow in color, and then they slice them.
Right.
And so the ones you get that are canned, I got because I thought this would help. It's from a website called UYpedia. Learn more about bamboo sprouts and shoots.
There you go.
So what
Well,
else do you
another,
want to say about all that?
I want to say Japanese knotweed is edible. And this is a huge, huge invasive plant in some areas of the United States.
Yeah, I don't
Knotweed.
have it here, thank God,
I
but
don't
I
have it
hear
here,
bad
but
things.
I planted a variegated knotweed, not realizing how much of a spreader it can be.
No.
And I finally have gotten rid of it, but um
Can you imagine if it reverted back to the regular knotweed,
and as he
as
says,
variegated plants do?
with it's not a vegetable you can buy, nor would you ever want to plant it in your garden, but it is edible. There you go.
There you go. It ought to be
There you
worth
go.
something. All right.
That's it. I think that's all I want to say. Our other option for Jay in the vegetable garden was to talk about Thomas Jefferson and his huge garden at Monticello, but we decided not to.
We could also talk about jicama, but
Yeah,
I don't
but
I don't grow jicama.
I don't either.
I've eaten it.
I don't grow a lot of weird stuff. I don't know if you've known that.
No, you're kidding. You who only wear green and yeah, why would you grow weird stuff? You tend to like things in straight lines.
Not
But you know
necessarily.
what? That's a good thing though. You know why? Because you keep the podcast going. Because if it were up to little old curvy me, we would have stopped a long time ago because I'm too lazy to do it all and too
All right.
distracted
I'm going to do a quote because
and itchy.
I don't
I'm
think you're a
itchy.
lazy person at all.
Well, good. I'm glad you don't.
Creativity isn't just about making art. Making your life is the ultimate creative act, and that is by Maggie Smith in a book called Dear Writer that I purchased at the bookstore a couple weeks ago. It's very
That's
good.
nice. And it fits perfectly within our book. Our book this week is Life with Flowers by Frances Palmer. And here's the beautiful book. And it's
It
just
is beautiful.
beautiful.
It is
It's one of the
beautiful.
prettiest books I've ever seen. And
Exactly what I
so,
thought, Dee.
I mean, and the inside it's just as pretty. So if you're into flowers, if you're into making arrangements, if you're into pottery, oh, geraniums, pelargoniums. Um, she's a potter and an artist, and she's just an amazing potter. And the intro was all from Aaron, wasn't it?
From yes, Aaron from Florette's Farm did the foreword to the book.
Right, because Frances Palmer showed up for one of her classes and intimidated her. Not on purpose, it's just that she was there and she knew who she was and she was like, "Oh my, you came to me?" But, Frances says she learned a lot from that project that they did together, from that class. And then
Right?
she went on from there. And I'm telling you, this woman, she
You
grows
said,
some
she's a
really,
potter and every she is also an excellent gardener. She knows her
yeah,
stuff.
she is.
And so this is not um
Look at that.
this is not a vanity book from the standpoint of look at me and my pretty
No.
flowers. There's some very good useful gardening information in here. And I did not realize that Frances taught daunting dahlias at the New York Botanical Garden for like 10 years. She taught a
There's her
class on growing
dahlias.
dahlias.
Yeah,
And
she knows how to
so,
grow those and does it really, really well. And they're all in these cages so that they stand upright and don't fall over.
oh yeah.
I mean, seriously, this is one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen.
Well, and I thought that pansy book was beautiful, but this one.
It's just as beautiful in its own way.
So
They're both lovely, lovely
they
books.
are, but I'm looking at this thing saying, okay, who who did all the photography?
Didn't Frances do it?
She did.
She did the
Except as noted
photography,
below, there's a few others, but she did
most of it.
anyway. Oh my
But
gosh.
think about it, she's an artist. So, and look at these dahlias. Look at that picture.
That is. Now
And
what I
so
like,
if you watch us on YouTube, instead of just listening to us as a podcast, you'll see the pictures.
yes. So what I like is the contents, in the table of contents, So the
Uh-huh,
book is divided up, and she calls it pre-vernal,
right. Before
vernal,
spring.
estival, serotonal, autumnal, hibernal. I thought that was a very interesting way to refer to the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's got a whole section on her approach um, for the cutting garden, how she grows her cutting garden.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good information there if you're wanting to grow a cutting garden. And then she talks about
You also get to see
inspiration.
her beautiful pottery. Look at that.
Yeah,
Look,
inspiration from the
Carol,
gardening world, and it's unbelievable.
Carol.
What? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the book. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and her pottery is so beautiful with it. And
She's
that's
got,
just hellebores. So
yes,
you not only get to see all of her beautiful arrangements and learn about gardening, you also get to see her pottery, which is
yes.
amazing.
And
Amazing.
this is really this is a very charming book. This is one to keep out and just keep looking at and absorbing. And I've got to get it back in there. So
It's so pretty.
we should read a little bit. It says in the follow-up, she has another book called Life in the Studio, which I thought I had, but I don't have it. And I don't understand why
Mm-mm.
I don't.
Uh-uh.
And I think what it was is I got a PDF of that book way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But she says potter, gardener, and photographer Frances Palmer celebrates her love of flowers. Frances approaches her garden planting in waves, ensuring there are always beautiful blooms for her to photograph in her vases. In Life with Flowers, chapters for each of these waves include profiles on her favorite varieties with flower specific gardening how to's and arranging techniques, as well as delicious flower forward recipes and simple DIY projects.
Yes, and we will also link to, in case you want some of her pottery, after looking at this beautiful book, we will link to her website. Her pottery is something
And
else.
and the reason I think I read
Life in
Life
the
in the
Studio.
Studio, wasn't she the one that she personally packed all her pottery to ship because she wanted to be sure it was done exactly how she wanted to be done so that it wouldn't break en route. And
You know what?
so
I didn't read that book, so I don't know. I
I
assume
think that
so.
was, yes, it was Frances Palmer. I think so. I
I'm
don't know
pretty
many
sure.
potters, but she does anyway. It says to read Life with Flowers is to be invited into both the garden and the creative mind of an insatiably curious, highly skilled, and wildly generous talent. So
Yeah,
anyway, we would like to
so pretty.
thank,
Not Timber Press, it's Wickman. So
yes. Anyway, we're very grateful to get a review copy of this book.
it's absolutely wonderful.
It
Shall
is.
I do the next quote and we'll go on to our dirt?
Yes.
I now want the pots. I want her flower pots.
Yeah, good luck with that, Dee.
I shouldn't have
Everybody.
looked. They're kind of expensive. Ah, and I'm getting a cat on Monday, so I don't get anything for a while. I'm getting a kitten, people. Yes, it's another Russian blue. I'm getting him Monday. Sorry, back to the quote, back to the episode. To sit in the shade on a fine day and look upon verdure is the most perfect refreshment. Jane Austen from Mansfield Park, 1814.
That is true. To sit in the shade on a fine day.
Mhm.
All right. So the dirt was sent to me by Claire Greenslade on Instagram, and she was one of the people that was part of the interview that I had with Noel Kingsbury a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Anyway, hooked up on Instagram, and she said she thought I would be very interested that there was a woman named Fanny Wilkinson who has designed 75 parks in the capital in London, and she was the first UK female landscape gardener to be paid for her work. And so they had one of those in London. They have all those blue plaques on everything. So if somebody,
Yes.
so she had a blue plaque, so they kind of knew who she was.
Wow.
But she's the first suffragist gardener in London, and there's an article about she changed the face of London, and they're going to put a statue up in a park, and we're going to link to an article in
Nice.
the Guardian. But apparently, I mean, when she got her graduated from school or whatever, uh, she was able to volunteer to work, but not for pay. And she finally, like, you got to pay me like you pay the men.
Good for her.
So anyway, she kind of led the way, good old Fanny. And so she's getting a statue put up for her in London. So that is our
And
dirt
she has a blue plaque, which is a big deal. Blue plaques are a big deal.
in
Statue's
London.
bigger. Yeah,
Yeah, the
they're
statue's the bigger deal.
but blue plaques are nice to look for because they are cobalt blue. Okay. I've seen many when I was there. So you got the next quote.
We are mosaics, pieces of light, love, history, stars, glued together with magic and music and words. Anita Christian.
So rabbit holes. I have two. My first rabbit hole is about preventing Lone Star ticks in the landscape. I had to do some research and think. I thought it was funny because when Sharon asked me to do this with her, she goes, just one slide, just 5 minutes. It's all you got to do. Because she was afraid she was asking too much of me. And I said, okay. So I went around because my process is I think about things for a long time before I write them. I do
Uh-huh.
that a lot.
I do
And
too.
and so I was thinking about it and it was getting closer to when we were going to do the piece, right? And I actually had it all written in my head completely. And she texted me that morning, not the morning of the talk. This is several days before. She goes, hey, I met up with this tick expert and he agrees with some of the stuff you said. And I just wanted you to know because she's a real science person. I said,
Right?
great. And then she goes, you could get that slide to me.
Yeah.
And so what I did is she called me to tell me some of the stuff he said. And while we were on the phone, I did the slide, sent it off to her right then. And she goes, how'd you do that? And I said, because I think about it for a long time.
Right, right.
I wanted it to be right. And I had to think about my processes. So that's one. And then also Bill and I have been deep into season 16 of Midsummer Murders. Now, anybody who watches old English shows is laughing because Midsummer Murders has been around for 25 seasons.
Right.
Never, ever watched it. My mother watched it and she would say, these are so much fun. You would love them. But I would look at the old ones and the quality was so bad, the film quality, that I was like,
Uh-huh.
I can't watch them. But when you get to season 15, the film quality went up, way up. And so I thought, okay, we'll start at season 15. So we did. And I texted you the other night because we were in season 16 and there was an episode number 3, which you can just get that episode. It's called Wild Harvest. And it was all about wild plants. And it was more detailed. We've seen a lot of mysteries that have information about plants, but this
Right.
one was so detailed. I was like, yeah, you can tell it's England and you can tell it was a horticulturist who helped write this show because it was detailed.
So I think that when I first retired, because I don't have Netflix right now, but I think you can watch this on BritBox.
No, you
I
don't get it on Netflix. You get it on Acorn and you get it on Prime because
okay.
Prime has Acorn now. It's not on Netflix. Anyway, keep going.
Well, I think I watched some of these when I early retired
You
and
might have.
in the wintertime when I was figuring out what am I going to do. I think I might have watched some of those.
Yeah, you might have. They're fun, detectives, and it's fun. All right, so those were my two. Your
So I
turn.
had Mrs. Charles H. Stout was my lost lady from last week, and she only wrote one book, The Amateur's Guide to Dahlias.
There you
And
go.
she was pretty, and I mean, she was obsessed with them. She was breeding them for like 18 years, and she would destroy the varieties that she didn't think were up to snuff. She wouldn't let them get
That's
out
not
into the
uncommon.
market. And then
It's
I
not
was reading
uncommon.
along, and she wanted to be an amateur, so she gave all of her profits from selling and speaking to charity. And then
Huh.
I'm reading along, and one of the charities she gave to was some like New York something of the hard of hearing. And the next thing the person wrote was, a charity near and dear to her heart because she was deaf.
Who
And I'm thinking
knew?
that Mrs. Stout was deaf, but anyway. So I'll put a link to that. I put a thing on that, and then I've been listening to P.D. James mysteries. I
Mhm.
finished the third one on natural causes. I moved on to the fourth one, which is called Shroud for a Nightingale. So, and I don't know if I like them or if I just like that the British are their British accent in the narration because I listened to them.
I love the show. It's Adam Dalgleish, and
Yeah.
I love the mystery series. It's fun.
So that made me think about all the other series. So like there was the Aunt Dimity, and I finished all 25 of those, and there's
Yep.
supposedly one coming out this year, but there's nothing on her website. And the author had said she's suffering from profound depression, so that's why she didn't know when the next one was coming out. Well, that's
Oh,
sad.
I'm very sorry. Yeah.
And then
We have a friend who has that problem.
Agatha Raisin, she died, but she told
Yeah,
this
MC Beaton, right? Yeah.
MC Beaton, she died, and so a guy R.W. Green writes all those now, and so there's a new Agatha Raisin coming out in October called Sugar and
Called Sugar
Spice.
and Spice. Yeah, that's funny.
And then the Hamish Macbeth, he annoys me, and so
Yeah, I don't like those.
I've read 33 of them, and I'm thinking, well, I only have like four left to finish that series, and let's complete the thing here. And there was a new one that came out this year, so it's like anyway. So I downloaded the next
See,
one
you're
of
very
those.
linear. You're a
I
linear
downloaded the
thinker.
number 34, Death of a Green-Eyed Monster. For whatever reason, I tend to read those. I tend to listen to the Agatha Raisin
Okay,
anyway.
works for me.
So
Whatever you think.
all I was doing was just trying to figure out the next
And then there's
mini
Flighty
games.
Me. And I just go like, if I don't like Hamish, I don't like him, Hamish Macbeth at all.
Uh-huh.
And so I think I read two of them and I said, okay, enough of that. And I never read them again.
So, but here's the thing. It got me
Yeah.
thinking there's another series, the Cat Who mystery series.
Cat who?
It's like the cat who it's about a
Oh,
cat.
yeah, 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 yeah. I've read some of those a long
My
time ago.
mom read almost all of those, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I should read those or listen to those this
Do you
summer.
think you're more like your mom or your dad?
In reading, my mom, because she read all the time. My dad was not a big reader. In gardening, she didn't garden at all, so I'm more like my dad. There you go.
In your chosen career, do you think you're more like your dad, your original career? Do you think you're more like your dad or your
My
mom?
original career in IT,
Yeah.
neither
And I
one.
don't,
That career
no, I
didn't
don't, I
exist.
mean, no, I mean, I'm trying to get at something here, but it's not working. Um, the qualities that make you so good at keeping track of the podcast and all that stuff, don't you think those were also qualities that you made you good at IT
Probably
and
more
a
from my dad.
director?
Probably more from my dad.
Yeah, probably, because
Because
he was a dentist,
he
right?
ran his own business, kept track of
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, and he was a
So
dentist, correct?
that's correct.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm definitely more like my dad. Okay, sorry. Sorry I veered off everyone. All
that's
right,
okay.
garden commissions. I'll tell mine first. All right, I'm just gonna keep plugging away and I'm gonna get the drip irrigation set up to my pots this weekend and to my vegetable garden. That is my big goal. Big goals. That sounds easy, but it's not because ants get in the lines and I have to set up all the timers and tighten them down. But once I get it done, it makes my life easier.
Yeah, I ran into a big nest of ants when I was out there weeding today.
I got bit yesterday. I
Not
picked up a
bit.
pot. Those little sugar ants. I picked up a pot and I was planting this thing. Didn't even see them. All of a sudden, my hands were just covered with them. And I didn't have on gloves because I was just running out there for a second.
I do put out those borax
They bit me.
traps, those taro traps. I put those out. I put those out yesterday because it's like, it's all fine if you stay outside, but then you come in the house, you done. You done.
Yeah. This was from the greenhouse. So, every once in a while you get a little extra something in your pots. It just happens. All
So
right. So what about you?
I need to get everything planted. I have plants sitting on the porch. I have plants sitting
Me
on the
too.
patio. So I need to start getting everything planted. My goal is to get everything planted, in the next couple of days. And I think I can do it. This is Friday afternoon and we're finishing up rather late. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's about noon. And it's like, no, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah, sorry. That's all on me because I
No,
wanted to
no,
go
that's
out there
okay.
this morning on
I
work.
was out there sweating and I needed to get cleaned up before I could do this. So that's it. We're done.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Garden Angelus. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free newsletter, you get a link to listen to the podcast a whole day early and links to the products we discuss. Some of these are affiliate links. Plus, if you go over to YouTube and see us in person, you get full episodes and they show up on Tuesdays.
If you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate this week. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.